Okay, mi gente, welcome to the Monoplaza F1 podcast. As always, I'm your host, Emi Bertre, and with me today is my favorite guest. It's Elkyn. Yeah, hey man, how you doing?
I'm
Welcome.
back in December,
Hey,
back like I never left, but here I am again.
hey, that's right. Back like you never left. All right, man. So we're talking the last race of the year, Abu Dhabi 2025. I almost said 2024. I don't know why I almost said 2024. Abu Dhabi 2025. So quickly, or not quickly, take your time. What was your impression of that
I'll
race?
know this because I tuned in. Of course, I had tuned in when you had the. It's been a while since we had, really since 21, since we come into the Abu Dhabi where it was closed. And at the same time, I was expecting only thing that would have made it right if instead of the usual Formula One anthem, if they would have, and I'm sorry to all Lewis Hamilton fans, if they would have rolled out Adele to play some Skyfall or sing some Skyfall for us, because that's what I have in my head. I was like, they would have rolled her out, done all that. I would have been like, this is
Listen,
the end, and I was like,
no, we don't. No, I don't. I don't. I don't ever need
you're
to
just like, and that's
rehash
what I'm saying.
80,
But I
80
was just like,
21. I'm
I was
I'm
like, here we
good.
go, 80-25. It's not just Max has already won it like 5 races beforehand. And you had a lot of storylines going in, especially with those top three. I think everyone dissected all the
Sure.
scenarios you could possibly. I think for me, I was just like, what's going to happen in turn one? I think that was the biggest thing because we knew it was Max and the two McLarens, and it was Lando was in P2 and then Oscar in P3 as things went, and then they went
Yes.
into there and it happened. What happened was kind of figure what happened. I'm like, Oscar is going to be aggressive from the get go. He's not going to be
Sure.
reckless, but he's going to make his move, and that's what he
No.
did. Great move to get past Lando, and I think Lando was smart, where he's like, "Hey, Oscar got it. If Oscar wants to go," and I think the goal was Lando knew whatever happens, I can't get worse than third, so that means DNF, anything like that, it out of the question. So he was
Literally.
like, "I'm gonna avoid." It's almost like he was like, "I'm gonna avoid any contact. I don't even care. Avoid any contact."
Well, I think it would have been different. So definitely a lot of storylines. No, I don't ever want to relive 80-21 unless I can go back in time and basically just strategize and tell Toto, hey, Toto, you need to talk to the directors and clarify some rules before this race starts. I want you to get that on paper, specifically the safety cars and how they unlap. Anyways, but obviously going into it, the storylines, you got three people that could potentially win the championship, which is kind of like it was a bit of a false
Oh yeah,
narrative if you think about it, because mathematically, like Lando, I think it was like 75 to 86% chance of winning the championship. Like you called out, all he had to do at a minimum was like the easiest path,
yes,
just get a
it would have
podium.
been interesting. It would have been like a disastrous qualifying for him, and he would have been like out in Q1, and then you would have like been like, "What the heck just happened?" And he would have been like starting like P17, 16. Then I would have been like, "This is going to be something to watch."
Well, I mean, no, because then at that point, for me, it would have just been like Oscar racing Max.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for me, it would have just been like, you know what the storyline would have been? Like, if he had qualified terrible, oh, there goes Lando,
Doing it under pressure.
crumbling, under buckling,
What was
under
that quote when he
pressure. I'm
first
like,
started racing? Is
okay,
this a
duh.
little bit too much for little Lando or something like that? Do you remember a commentator? Someone said that. I think he had like crashed or
Listen,
something.
I don't even remember that, but like so again, like for me, like the storyline, it was like a little bit
Yeah.
disingenuous, right? And like Lando did what he needed to do, which was honestly just get a decent qualifying. Like, would it have been easier for him if he had qualified on pole? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
probably, absolutely. But like qualifying second wasn't even bad, anyways. And like you're right, like Max knew the state of play, Lando knew the state of play, so those two starting together, they knew like neither of us need to be aggressive right now. Like literally, like they had everything to lose. So
Absolutely.
if Lando crashes into Max, that's a wrap. If Max vice versa,
And then
that's a wrap.
Oscar was pretty much because no one else was in contention besides Oscar. Like that would have been giving Oscar.
Yeah,
Oscar would
but
just would have had to finish the race at that point. No, he would have needed to get in points.
and that's
What am I saying? He needed to get the win the race,
he literally like Lando would have had to have
and
finished
then
sixth.
yeah,
Oscar would have had to finish
and then the
first.
thing for that is too like you could tell like because you saw them like in the media session, right? How of course they seated the three of them together. I'm like, why wouldn't they do that? But you could. I don't want to say Max playing mind games, but he was like, I have nothing to lose. I was just like, Max isn't going to be that reckless.
You do,
I
brother.
was like, he's just playing.
Yeah, it's like you do.
But like out of those three, though, like admittedly, like I trust Max the most under pressure. Which like Max to me had a
Okay.
flawless run. He like you said, he Max and Lando did exactly what they needed to do in that race. Like Max knew he needed to get first place to even give himself a
Mm-hmm.
mathematical chance, and then just hope that
Mm-hmm.
Lando doesn't get P3. And then of course I think like on the radio, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. On the radio, I heard Max a few times asking about like is Charles gaining on Lando.
Dog, that was another one that was kind of like surprising to me because like Ferrari Ferrari's Ferrari, right? Hey, by the way, congratulations to the both of us for making it a
Man,
year, having being forced to follow
I'll tell you
Ferrari's
this:
every
we were
move.
frustrated
Uh,
with like Mercedes, but like we thought Mercedes was doing stuff. At least Mercedes, they pulled out some poles, and Mercedes pulled out some wins the last few years, and Ferrari pulled out some wins, but
listen, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc pulled out some
yeah,
wins. Ferrari was okay because you got to remember this is again the team that was like, hey, we got second in the constructors. You know, it would be crazy, smart, and intelligent right now. I don't know what changing 99% of the car going into the next season, the last year of regulations, because what could we possibly have to learn or like that? Ugh. So that's the
man,
Ferrari we're talking about. And like, say what you will, like obviously, like Mercedes being a German team, well-oiled machinery, right? They obviously have a lot of people over at Brackley in England as well. But like, I will say, just like sidestepping before we get back to it, like there are certainly times, like I think you and I honestly understood that this was Lewis Hamilton staying on top of what he
mm-hmm.
wanted to do. Mercedes was trying to do like that soft push you out right off into the sunset because we got Kimmy in the wings and we don't want to keep him waiting for too long, which to me like was dumb because literally all you had to do like just send Kimmy to Williams under James Valls, and then when Lewis decides he doesn't want to do it anymore,
Bring him on
promote
over.
Kimmy, right? Like that's like a win-win to me. I don't know why we're trying to do trigonometry when it's a basic arithmetic problem,
They
right?
literally had Kimmy and
But there
Alex
was,
race together for at least 1 year.
yeah, there was certainly times so where I felt like you remember, you remember Lloyd, yes, the R&B
Hey,
singer
still very
Lloyd.
relevant. Still very relevant.
He's extremely relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Shouts out Lloyd. And you know he had that song, "A Player's
Mm.
Prayer." And so there were times during the year when I just kept looking back at Mercedes longingly, right? Girl, I must have been crazy,
I mean, we
right?
were out
Like,
here. We were out here
uh,
like the Wolverine meme on the bed, touching the portrait, but it was like a Mercedes. It
listen,
was a.
because listen, like now that the season's over, it's like I promise anyone who's listening, we'll get back on track. But like when we started, like Ferrari was like aura farming to the
Yeah.
max, right? Like they had the Lewis is like the meeting, they're having coffee. You remember it was like little snapshots, and then like when the photo shoot came out, what was it like? Was it February? Was it February or late
Somewhere around
January
there. Yeah.
where like they did
In
the
front of the
photo shoot?
house.
Lewis out
Yeah.
there like Don Corleone with the Ferrari and the 8 windows and the symbology. The braids were right. The beard was lined up. I was like, man, Lewis Hamilton broke the internet. I was ready. Then I was talking to my friend Tasha about this. Do you know, like in sports, when teams make blockbuster trades in the off season and then they do any kind of like preseason fan event that's like very similar to a championship
Oh
parade? You know
yeah.
what I'm talking about? Like when teams do that, that's what it felt like. Ferrari rolled out the red carpet. They were at the square. They were
They
doing
were doing
donuts.
everything.
They were waving. I was like, oh, dog,
Oh
we
my
got
gosh.
this. And
And
then,
then the Australian
like,
GP.
you know, for well, listen, and then the Australia GP happened, and I'm thinking to myself,
It's
like, well, you know, it was
yeah.
raining. It's kind of crazy. Lewis led for like 2 milliseconds. I was like, dang, already in his first
Yeah.
race leading. And then they just kind of like left him out there, right? But then they followed it up with China, right? And in
Mm.
that sprint, that's his second freaking race with Ferrari. My man puts that on sprint pole. I was like,
Yeah. I'm thinking he's on sprint pole. He won sprint. I was like,
listen,
he's gonna. he's
He
gonna get
won.
the pole for the China GP. I was just like,
I was like, we
and
back. We're
then
back.
little did we know it was all a
The
mirage.
disqualify.
Dog.
Hey, what I appreciate, you know what I appreciate that the most united Ferrari was this year between those two guys. United front was anytime they got disqualified. Got disqualified, sorry, DNF and disqualification or a double disqualification in China. I was like, damn, okay. And then we go to Zandvoort, and Zandvoort haters come out and like Lewis crashes in Zandvoort. He lost a little bit of control because you remember it was sprinkling. I was like, dang. Next thing you know, Charles gets taken out by Kimi Antonelli. I was like,
Oh,
oh, you're both out. And then what was it? Was Brazil? Yeah, and then Brazil freaking in Brazil, it happened again,
like
dog. Like
when it kept happening,
Lewis.
like I know everyone kept telling like Lewis,
No,
remember who you are, but I'm like, brother, he is in the sunken place. Not even Jordan Peele can get him out at
he
that point.
he is
He's,
he is in
and
the
like
trenches.
I think that people were saying like, oh, look at all these other drivers who go to these teams and make the most out of it. And I'm just like, for me, it's like apples to oranges because if you have like, I give Charles the benefit of the doubt that like what he's doing with that machine
Absolutely.
was wonders. And people are like, oh, why didn't Lewis do the same thing? But
Sure.
I'm like not so much.
New
And
team, new
that's why it's just
environment.
like I threw out the window when people compared it to like Carlos Sainz, who had, I'll give him props. Williams had, for their standard, a great season, finishing P5
Oh.
for their
By the
yeah.
by the way, first I apologize to Alex Albon for thinking that Carlos Sainz was going to baptize him, dunk
Yeah,
on him, right? So I was like, my bad, Carl, or my bad,
yeah.
Alex. Now I have to take back that apology and apologize to Carlos Sainz for ever doubting him. Carlos came within 9 points, got two podiums with Williams in his first year. By the way, like the thing that I feel like people weren't talking about is like Carlos Sainz changes teams like every
Hmm.
3 years. All right. From Red Bull to McLaren to Ferrari to Williams. Right? He's like on his 14th. And granted, the last one, oh, I forgot, my bad. He was in Renault too. So it was like Red Bull, Renault, McLaren, Ferrari, Williams. And everyone shows the graphic before Carlos, after Carlos. Great driver. Absolutely
Hmm.
great driver. But when you talk about adjusting to a team, who is going to do better? The guy who's constantly switching teams or the guy who's literally in his entire career driven for a Mercedes based engine team, right? And prior to that, went from 2007 to when he left, I think it was like 2012, to go join Ferrari, or 2013, sorry, Ferrari or Mercedes. And then from 2013 to 2024, Mercedes. Like Lewis Hamilton doesn't move. Maybe that's a feeble excuse. I don't know. You tell me. But long story short, it was a mirage. All right. You and I had good feeling, and I should have been listening to my friend. My friend Vince, who's a lifelong tortured Ferrari fan, said, "Hey, bro, hey, you got a little too much dip on your chip. You need to temper that. Those guys aren't winning jack. All right." They changed 99% of their car. They're not doing anything. But he was like, the only thing I'll guarantee you is that Lewis is gonna get out qualified severely by Charles. And I was like, oh no. He's like, new team, new car, new steering wheel, new trackside engineer, new everybody. And then the thing that killed me was like, Lewis doesn't even speak Italian. I was like, all right, man, but they speak English. He's like, okay, bro, I'll see you on the other side. And I was like,
That's what happened. But can't let ourselves too much go down this, call it once again the sunken place. Let's go back.
all right,
We
yeah,
got because
back. So that's why I was surprised Charles was
yeah,
keeping up with
he
us
was
or
keeping up
Lando.
with him and like he put a little bit of pressure. Eventually, Lando did get the separation, and like I think people need to give him props. As you mentioned, Lando finished P3, which may crown him. Let him join the club.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, but now, so a couple things that I guess I'm going to ask you. One, were you more happy for Lando or more happy that Max didn't get
I
his
think
fourth
I
one?
was happy for Lando. I think anytime anyone wins one, and I think
Hmm.
this season is a great reminder of how long the season is or how long it's gotten.
Lord,
Because we literally
dog,
had,
but it went by
yeah, it
fast.
went by fast, but like the way momentum shifts back and forth, it's so much. And like, that's why I think we're going to be very hard pressed unless something weird happens to see a season like Max had in 23, where like there wasn't momentum shift in any way.
Domination.
There
Yeah.
was no momentum shift. Singapore was the only race where you saw him generally struggle. People were like, "Oh man, here we go. The season's gonna be fun." Psych. They went back next week and
Do-
like it never. Yeah,
Dominated again. They won by 2 days.
and like that's why for me overall this with Lando winning this year, I think I give him props because the way things started off, it was really like I think Oscar led most of the year. Oscar led most of the season, right?
So yeah, Oscar led for 15 rounds. Oscar
Yeah,
was
he
in the
led for
lead,
most of it. And then we know Max chipped away, chipped away, chipped away, chipped away, and then
starting at
yeah,
Monza.
and then
Absolutely,
Lando got
yes.
the lead with was it 6 races to go? How many races to go?
Uh, I think it was after. Was it Mexico? I don't remember where like it
But
changed,
like
but yeah, like
once he got that lead, it switched. And like I think that's why I give him props because with a season like this, I think you do have to have. Anytime you win a championship in any professional sport, there is a level of mental fortitude you need to have. And Lando, I
yeah,
mean, you know that history. I mean, in the back of his mind, I'm sure there were many times he's like, "Don't mess up." It would have sucked. I'm talking about that psyche of his, and even Oscars after that double
sure,
disqualification. That could have like that for me. That could have been like it. Like they could have just been like, "Oh, no, like McLaren's in the pits. What are we gonna do?" But that's why I give him the props. Like I'm really
yeah.
happy for him that he was able to get in there, and it was interesting. To, go ahead, you
I
go.
no, no, no.
No,
Finish, finish,
and I
finish,
think
finish.
the appreciation that he has too, because I thought it was really interesting the quote he had afterwards when he gets interviewed after the race, where he's like almost like going back and appreciating guys like Max and even Lewis. I can't believe you. I used to say he said I used to think it was just having a fast car was good enough, and then he realized. And people remember like it all stemmed back from last year. I remember when Lewis was like, "Man, you guys are fast," and then Lando had to just put in that thing, and he had to go on and say like, "Well, yeah,
See, I
man, you
think
had the fastest blah blah blah," and like Lewis was like, "He's like, hey, little bro, I'm just saying, like, where were you 7 years
yeah.
ago?" And second of all, like, I'm just giving you props.
Listen,
But like, I think Lando himself realizes too, and I think it's almost humbling in a way because once you get that first one, like, you realize how hard it is. And I mean, you go through
mm,
history about guys who won one, and like, I want to go back and you would know maybe you more might know this history more than I do of how many guys who won one, and then after they won one, it's like their career didn't last that much longer after they got that one.
oh, listen, you don't have to go that far.
Yeah,
Jensen
Jensen
Button.
Button. Obviously, we know Nico Rosberg after he won.
Well,
Yeah,
look, like Nico literally couldn't deal with it anymore. Nico was like, "Yeah, I'm out. Thank
yeah,
you." Right? Because you have like Button won in 2009, right? Then you had Vettel for
hmm
4 years, and then Rosberg got one,
yeah.
right? And then Rosberg was like, or
It
not
was
even. It was like
Hamilton.
Vettel,
Yeah,
then Lewis, yeah, Hamilton, then Rosberg, and then after that, Rosberg was like, I'm not gonna be able to
and like
do
the
it.
thing is, like
I'm out.
Lando does have, I believe, a championship caliber teammate racing Lockett, which I think like adds more pressure because I almost feel like if
Sure.
and that's why I almost feel for Oscar on that same team because like I hate and I think I texted you that I'm like F1 fans are some of like the worst fans out there. Like I hate how some people were like, "Oh, look at this, McLaren gifted Lando the championship." I'm like, that's not true. I'm like, Oscar had his chances, and like many
Dog.
things, same way as Max. Max had his chances, and it's not just one mistake. It's a multitude of mistakes that
Uh,
led to Oscar losing that lead that he had, and then eventually ending
listen,
in third place.
because that's the thing, and that's the thing. Like people ignore. Like Oscar, unfortunately, had the worst string of
Mm-hmm.
races, like starting with
Yeah.
Monza, right? So like at Monza, like obviously like I was at that race where they did like team orders and he was like, you gotta let Lando through because we had a bad pit stop. And like thankfully McLaren did that for Lando because ultimately ended up like
Mm-hmm.
helping him points wise. Right? Cool. But then what was it like? Oscar did not finish in
Mm-hmm.
Baku, right? Oscar did not do great in the
Nope.
Americas, right? Like Austin was kind of a disaster for the sprint, and then like even the race, like yeah, he qualified super low, and then he came back towards the end, but still didn't
Yep.
podium, right? Then Mexico did not do great in Mexico. Brazil did not do great, but like right, it was just kind of like a string of bad races, and then you compound that with the fact that like in Qatar last week in Qatar, it was kind of crazy because obviously, like now, like McLaren made life way difficult for their drivers by not
Oh
pitting
my gosh.
after that safety car on the seventh. You see what I'm saying? And so, like, it was a lot of like, if McLaren does McLaren need to get out of the way of their drivers? So again, I'm not. I think you and I are saying the same thing. Like, not taking anything away from Lando. Lando, if anything, he proved that he pulled through and he had the mindset. Sure, absolutely, he was humble after the fact that he won the championship because I think he realized, yeah, you're right. It's not just the fastest car. You have to have the team
Mm-hmm.
behind you. You have to weather it, the ups and downs, right? Because at certain points he was down to Oscar for 15 rounds, for 15 races. He was
Yeah.
behind Oscar, right? And definitely like at Zandvoort when his car like blew up, it was like, okay, that's a wrap. But again, like moving on from that, congratulations, I guess, Lando Norris, which by the way, he will be LN1 next season as the champion. It is now his right to wear the number
Huh.
one, and he confirmed it. He will be using, yeah, only the defending champion can use
So
the
that's
number
why. So
one
Max is gonna go
in
back to
Formula One.
33.
Yeah, he wants to use the number three, but he can't until uh Daniel Ricciardo's been retired. I think it's like for 2 years or something like that. So the earliest Max could use the number three is
But I find it
2027.
interesting. Like, had that, like, wasn't Lewis when he was winning? Wasn't he 44 still?
He never changed his number, never switched it up on him. Always a real one. 44.
Man.
But I mean also it's kind of like that's his signature and that's his trademark, right?
Yeah.
Like no one can use the number one as long as you're the defending champion. The only person who can use number
Which
one
is
is
so
you,
wild to me because
right?
I'm gonna still in my head I feel like associate Lando with number four and Max with number one. Like that's just like I'm gonna have to rewire my
I
brain a
mean,
little bit.
Max is always 33 in my head, so whatever. But I get the Lando one. It's number four. But yeah, Piastri I think had a good run. He'll obviously take away. Honestly, in the off season, if I was him, I'd put all that focus on the types of style of tracks that you find in the Americas because again, right? I'd revisit if I was him. I'd revisit Baku. I'd revisit Austin. I'd revisit Mexico. I'd revisit Brazil. Those are his four
And
worst
like
tracks.
and it's almost like I have to remind myself I'm like this guy's in his third year and he's fighting
I
for a
know.
championship and he led for that many rounds. And for me, like it just shows like you're right, like it's so many different components that go into winning that championship for you. And like I think that's where you can appreciate it. And we know that like Max is no longer the champion. But like you can still appreciate it. Like I think Max pushed McLaren. He
Mm-hmm.
he he made them like essentially like I'm not gonna roll over and let you take this. Cause like the way that Red Bull
Yeah.
was acting like before the summer break, like I was just like leading into the summer break, I was just like, oh my gosh. Like Max is probably not happy with like the way that this team is, the unsteadiness
Well,
behind the scenes with Horner and all this stuff, and you're just like, and then
but
go ahead.
and you're, no, I was just like I was thoroughly enjoying their downfall. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna lie to you. I was there for every mistake and yet even when they were at their worst, they were still
and
winning
that's the
races,
thing. Like
right?
they still had like I think what frustrates me sometimes is the perception that Max was driving a tractor to P1.
Mm,
I'm just like your
that's not,
car
yeah.
has really good
Eh,
pace competing with those other teams because for me throughout the season outside of like Max, which it's weird I consider him like a one man team a lot of the times. It was
it
I
was
mean
all
literally
right.
it was pretty much like McLaren and then like Mercedes were the most consistent with their pace. I felt like throughout the season. I felt like you couldn't trust many of the other teams. It's crazy to think that like Ferrari, you couldn't obviously Ferrari you couldn't trust their pace compared to like 23 and 24, especially 24 they had really good pace, and then this year, but like Mercedes, and you saw with the way that George Russell competed. I felt like George Russell got to besides Monza, I think he got to Q3 every I think almost every round because
Yeah.
Monza was just but that was just like a that wasn't his fault on Monza. It was just like the car just be like, hey, we're gonna stop. The car was just dead.
And and listen though, like you think about like this season, and honestly, like I
Mm.
hadn't really thought about it because it was kind of like spread out. There were only 4 race winners this
Yeah,
entire season. So on the top step it was either Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen, and
yeah.
George Russell. And George only won 2 races, right? And then between Oscar and Lando, they won 7 apart, like 7 each. So that's
Max won
14 right
8,
there. Max ended up winning 8, right? So now you're looking at what, like 20, I can't math. What's 14 plus 8
22,
is 22.
22.
Yeah, 22, duh. And then George. So like I'm not gonna lie to you, like the only exciting thing about the season early on was the fact that, like, hey, it's not just Max winning every race. Last season,
Last year was fun.
last season was a
What did we have? 7? Was
fire
it 7 different
season for
drivers?
yes. Lewis won, Lando won, Carlos
Oscar
won,
won.
George won, Max won,
Even
Oscar
Charles
won.
won his home race.
We had seven
Man,
race winners, like, and
yeah,
multiple too, right? Because Lewis won 2, George won, yeah, George won
yeah.
2, Max won a bunch, Carlos won 2, Lando won 2. Like, you
And
get what I'm
which
saying?
is
Like, it was an
and
amazing
like and
season
like
for me.
Max still
Like,
pulled it off. Obviously, people were like, "Oh, mathematically, these other people are," but you never really like
sure,
believe.
but
It's
it
like
wasn't.
I call it the NFL playoff terminology. Mathematically, this football team is still in it.
Remember,
If this 15 other scenarios happen, and you're just like,
if the scenario's too like
mhm.
wild, you just like, hey, bro, it's
But
over. All
like,
right, just
and
just go
like,
to
I think
bed.
one thing I do feel for Oscar though. Like, it was one of those like you feel for him and you kind of see like he wanted to be happy for Lando. I can tell. Like watching, I was kind of like rewinding a little bit, like that, all that stuff. He wanted to be happy, but like it sucks, especially knowing that like
Hmm.
your team had a championship winning car, obviously, and you led for so many rounds. You led for most of the season. Only for that you see,
Yeah,
and you kind of, I feel like that's gonna haunt him because I think you've seen it. You watch F1 and you've gone back in the history of it. Sometimes you can be very close
sure.
and then never get back to that place again.
So, so I'm not gonna hold you. I actually don't agree with that
Hmm.
opinion. I actually think Oscar will learn from this. Oscar will move on. But but somebody did say, shouts out to Sebastian Vettel for winning the proxy
Oh my
war
gosh!
against Mark Webber. I was like,
Wow.
no, but I think Oscar, it's his 3rd year. He comes back from this.
Mhm.
Obviously, I don't think he's not hanging his head down. I think he understands where and how he lost
Mhm.
it, right? Um, but it's only his 3rd year, and I'm just gonna end on this note. Could be worse for Oscar. He could still be at
Hmm.
Alpine.
And Alpine, I think they get 19th and 20th.
Yes. And by the way, they let go of Jack Doohan to bring in Franco
Oh my gosh!
Colapinto, and they finished with the same amount of
And
points, except Colapinto got the contract
yeah, and I
extension.
was watching it and I was just like obviously Colapinto came in and we were all like, wow, man, look at him go. And like, here's the thing, like, one thing I appreciated was at least Pierre Gasly. He can show that like if he gets a decent Alpine, like he'll get you points. Like I have faith in Pierre Gasly to get you
Sure.
like he'll be like maybe like between 6th and 10th, but he'll get you some points. But then like Colapinto, I remember last year when he came in hot, and then I think he crashed out in 3 straight races or something like that. And then
Crashed a
Doolin,
lot,
I felt bad
yes.
for him because it's like he's a rookie, and they're like, okay, we're done. And I'm like, but your team's not
At,
doing that great. Like,
listen, as soon as Doohan, you knew Doohan was gonna get promoted, but as soon as they signed Colapinto, I was like,
you're
dang,
just itching to put him in.
that was a yeah, that's a wrap. So yeah. Anyways, so Oscar, I think he had a good run. He'll learn
Mhm.
from next year, and he'll move on. Quickly, just moving on. Obviously, there's changes coming in at Red Bull, as you already know. Yuki Tsunoda, he's gone. Put up probably the worst defense against anybody ever.
Yeah,
Uh, when we're talking about Lando, but he's gone. Although I think he's going to remain a
he is.
reserve
Yeah,
driver for Red Bull. So we'll see what
man.
what that's going on.
You know what?
Helmut
He's gone.
Marco gone.
Pack your bags, buddy.
Adios. Yes, sir. Auf
Hey,
Wiedersehen,
I'll tell you
as
this
they
though.
say in
Seeing
German.
Yuki defend, like one of the things, obviously, I wanted Lewis to win in 21, but I'll always go back and I give Checo his props for some of those races where he
Yeah.
defended like none other. Like when people are like, "Oh, Checo is washed," I'm just like, that brother could drive. That
Hey,
brother could drive.
I'm not. I'm not saying nothing, but Max Verstappen has won 0 championships without Checo
Like
Perez.
that brother can drive. And I still remember the beginning of the 23 season, he was taking off. I remember that beginning of 23 season, he was taking off, and then we got to Miami, and he was like, "Slow down, partner. Slow down."
Well, what we know now, obviously, like what we know now about Red Bull is that both drivers are not driving with the same machinery. And Checo had been saying that all
Yeah.
along, and people were like, "Okay, dog, you're just a sore loser." But then when Mekis came in to Red Bull, he was like, "No, no, 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 no. Yeah, we're gonna give everybody the
Mm-hmm.
same. Now that Horner's gone, we're gonna give everybody the same equipment. So like, let's do it that way." I guess. Do you feel bad? Do you feel bad for Yuki
A little
at all?
bit,
Because he called his own
yeah.
shot. He's the one who was like, "No, put me in,
And
coach.
he
I'm
put
ready."
himself in, and no, I just honestly feel more bad for Hajar. Like Hajar, like I wanted him to have maybe one more season at Racing Bulls, like maybe, but like I understand Red Bull. They're like, hey, kid, you ready for the big leagues? And
I don't feel bad for
obviously,
Hadger. I
and then
really
I feel
don't.
and I do. One of the reasons why I am happy for him because I know Marco was one of his biggest haters and was like, this guy's not good. And then Hajar is interesting because we talked about like rookies and like don't get me wrong, like Antonelli
Mm-hmm.
like started off just
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
taking off, and like Antonelli, I think he ended up getting was it one or two podiums this season.
He got 2 podiums
But
this season. Yeah, he got one in Canada, and then he got another one
but
in Brazil.
Hajar to me was like outside of his first race, the improvement
Sure,
he had, and then the consistency he built, and then his
absolutely,
qualifying prowess towards the end of the season, like that final third, I was just like, this
absolutely,
guy, he has a bright future.
real
Mm-hmm.
deal. Yeah, real deal,
Yeah.
Holyfield. So the thing for me with like Hadjar, if you think about it, like so Horner's no
Mm-hmm.
longer there, right? Laurent Mekies is the team principal at Red Bull, who he was with at Racing Bulls, so they're already used to each other, right? And then the biggest ops that Hadjar had was Helmut
Mm-hmm.
Marko, who today the news officially came out that he'll be gone next year, right? So with those two key individuals gone, a new set of regulations coming in, I think it's ripe for Hadjar to succeed, right? And I think more than anything, a team that is like cutthroat,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that they'll do this to like their top drivers, it's Red Bull. So I don't want anybody watching this to take what I'm saying out of context. I'm not saying that Isaac Hadjar is going to go in and he's going to usurp Max Verstappen.
Not happening, folks. Not
That's not
happening.
happening. However, I will say this: if I am wrong and Hadjar does come in and he does amazing, Red Bull will turn on Max immediately, right? They have a history of
Didn't they
doing
turn
that,
on
right?
Sebastian Vettel?
You look at
Like,
Absolutely. You look at Mark Webber. Mark Webber got done in by Sebastian Vettel. Sebastian Vettel got done in by Ricardo, essentially. Ricardo then got done in by Max, right? Like, you get what I'm saying? And then Ricardo went running to McLaren once, or not McLaren, to Renault, now known as Alpine, once he realized, "Ooh, Max is,
yeah.
he's better than me." And so, like, Hadger, I think the ground is right for him to do really well. The kid has got a lot of
Mm-hmm.
talent, right? But again, and let me reiterate, I am not saying he is going there to dominate Max. All I am saying is that if he does, Red Bull will turn on
Yeah.
him being
Yeah.
Max. So that would be interesting. On top of like, honestly, Max Verstappen is generational, so any team he would want to go for,
Well,
like they would be
yeah.
like,
It
"Yep,
was it was like the worst kept secret of how much Mercedes was courting him. Like Mercedes.
yeah," which it got a little bit weird. Like if I was George, I'd be like, "Come on, dog, what I got to do? I'm winning races. I'm doing the
Yeah.
best here." And I think unfortunately for George, the upside with Kimmy, you saw Kimmy's trajectory and how Kimmy was learning, right, and how he started to
Yeah.
improve.
Kimmy's towards the end, I was just like,
So
Kimmy's
we'll see.
dangerous. And like,
And even now, George only has a 1+1 too,
mhm.
right? So next year is guaranteed for sure. But then it's like I think it's like a team option in
Yeah. Which is
27.
like, I think for them, it's like, did George finish fifth in the standings, fourth?
George Russell was fourth
Fourth in
in
the
the
standings.
standings. Yeah.
I think like for them, they're like, especially with these new regulations coming in 26, they probably
Yep.
would they would love for him to get a top three finish or compete for a championship, be in there.
Uh, hey, listen. So put a pin in that because I'm coming
Mm-hmm.
back on there. Right. Let's wrap up with Red Bull. I think the makeup of the team is looking good. I thought that Max had the right mindset going into the race. I thought he had the right mindset post
Yeah,
race, right? We'll see what's happening next year. I'm not sure if GP is still going to be his team engineer or his trackside engineer next year. Um, GP was
I think
crying,
he kind of
but
yeah.
I think Max kind of had like the right mentality. It's like essentially the way I interpreted it was like we were playing with house money. Like we were down 104 points
And
back in Italy or back after Zambor, like, and we came back
it's
within
someone
two. Like,
who's like at Vegas and has a hot hand at the poker table, and they're
yeah,
just like
yeah.
winning, 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 and eventually they're just like they came in with $100 and somehow they found themselves with like $1 million and they're just like, what I got to lose? This is and like
And so like it wasn't his
yeah.
first either. So like that's the difference
Mm-hmm.
too. Like Max has already he won four, three legit and whatever. Anyways,
But
and
he's a
so like it
four-time
wasn't like it was like his
champion,
first one.
and I think it does show like it makes me think like I want to go back and look again at Schumacher winning his five in a row, and like looking at because I remember when Schumacher won his. I just remember at the time like I barely started scratching the surface on Formula One. I knew who he was. I was
Mm,
very well aware he was just winning them
mm,
back to
mm,
back to
mm.
back to back, and it is hard to win that many in a row. And like it's
You got
interesting though. Like I will say this, I think it matters who it is who breaks it because I one thing I do remember from 21, people were very much celebrating for Max to beat Lewis, and they're like, "Oh, the sport's boring." Da, 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 da. But now, like I hear people
sure.
like, "No, we want Max to win." Like this is, and I'm just like, where did this come from?
Not not me. No, definitely not me. But again, like in sports and all sports, right? Like people generally speaking do not like
Mm-hmm.
winners, right? So everybody really likes Sebastian Vettel now, but they hated Sebastian Vettel when he
Yeah,
was winning, right? He was cocky, he was all of these things. Not this like we're gonna build bee houses in the middle of Suzuka. No, like this Sebastian Vettel is like loved and adored, blah 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 blah. Same thing, right? Like when you're winning and when you're on top, everyone
mm-hmm.
hates you. When you're a loser but kind of good, everyone's like, "Oh man, that guy's chill." The only person I think who doesn't really get that kind of grace is Lewis Hamilton, because every record is always like, "Oh well, Lewis didn't do this, he didn't accomplish this," and it's like, "Damn, bro, just let it
Yeah.
go. All right, you got it. Okay, just be done." Anyways, all right, full circle, and so I'll be excited to see what happens next year with Red Bull. I think unpinning what you were saying about George Russell, question for you is like, which is related, it's always going to be tied back to Ferrari. So let's say George gets that dominant car, he's able to be his teammate, wins his first world driver
Mm-hmm.
championship, right? So now you're looking at Max Verstappen, who won, Lando Norris, who won, potentially a George Russell, who won, right? And then let's say the year after that, it's not George that wins, it's like
Yeah.
Oscar Piastri, right? At what point is Charles? So this is where I'm bringing it back for Charles. So like, do you think like Charles is looking at all his? Can I call them
I think they're
classmates?
classmates
I don't
like
know his
Lando, George Russell, at
his
least those
peers.
two, and then
Because
with him and Max in the same circuits.
yes, so him and Max came up together, right, along with Pierre,
Mm-hmm.
right. Uh, he Charles has been compared to a lot of greats. He's clearly a generational talent. He, for better or for worse, mopped the floor in the head to head with Lewis this year. Sure, whatever. But ultimately, like, what does he have to show for it in 7 years, right? Uh, Meanwhile, Max is winning. Now Lando has won. Alex Albon's on a team that's quickly
Mm-hmm.
improving, right? And then you have a George Russell that's on a team that's also improving. That's a well-oiled machine that potentially now is going to bring the best car. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
at what point? Because the rumor is like Charles is going to give Ferrari 7 races next year, and after 7 races, if they're not good,
because Charles like at least he's tasted like 22. I think was his that was the closest he got 22.
yes,
So like
absolutely. I came into 22 thinking like Ferrari, and I wasn't even a Ferrari fan back then. I was like, they're gonna win this, and then Max,
yeah,
and then
and like
Max.
and it must be frustrating for Charles like. Especially once again, you brought this up. SF24, great car, and then Ferrari's just like, nah, 99%, scratch this. Let's remix it. We got
Let's
new
change it.
regulations coming up.
I'm gonna give you the chopped
This
and
is pretty
screwed
much like they
version.
pretty much said, like in my head, like I know they didn't say this, but it was like we're throwing away this season because we have new regulations coming up. Like that's what it almost felt like.
the the only thing, and this is not true. All right, like at one point during the season, like the wildest idea that I had was that like maybe the reason they changed up the car, 99% of the cars, because they were going to use the entirety of 2025 to test the car for to inform the car for
Mm-hmm.
2026, right? But even that would not have made sense because the regulations in this year that we just got done with were all ground effects. So the floor was like the
Mm-hmm.
most important thing, right? But if anything came through for me on the SF25 was that like the car was just inconsistent, the balance was not there, the rear end was not there, right? It's like oversteer, like all of these things. So it's just kind of like whatever. But again, like the question stands, like Charles made a comment at the end of this race that was basically like you try to stay positive throughout the year, but now that all of it is over, like you can't just like you can't help but be like super
Oh yeah,
disappointed and everything. I was like, yeah, because for all the podiums that Charles got and all the poles that Charles got, right, and all the stuff, he still finished fifth with no race wins. The SF25 gave no race wins
and
to
that must
Ferrari,
be
right?
frustrating
And
for him.
everybody
Yeah,
like all everybody talking, yeah, all everybody talking about is like, oh, Charles dominated Lewis. Okay, and him and Lewis ended the season the same way with zero championships and zero race
that's the thing.
wins.
Like, and I'm sure Charles is looking at it like with drivers, you only got like that prime. Like, you're not going to have those same reactions. Like we see it with like an Alonso and a Lewis. Like eventually, you get to your late 30s and you get to your 40s, and also too, I'm gonna say this: some people can win in their later stages. Because I've seen a lot of champions like early 30s. That's when they start trailing off. That's what I've seen. But like
Mm-hmm.
some people, been a rare breed who can carry on in the mid 30s.
Yeah, shouts out Damon Hill. Shouts out Nigel for Nigel. Yeah, Nigel Mansell. Wow. Yeah. So I hear you. I guess like when I look at Charles, it's he's been loyal to the
Mm-hmm.
team, but has the team done everything in their power? Because like for me, Ferrari seems to be like the definition of
Mm.
insanity, right? Like in the last 7 years, they've basically kept the same people on. Because by the way, like an example, Lewis's race engineer was the same race engineer that Sebastian Vettel had.
Yeah.
He was the same race engineer that Carlos Sainz had. So like, and even Carlos would struggle with him, right? And it's like like the infamous "stop inventing" line was
Mm-hmm.
Adami trying to give Carlos like team orders in Silverstone, right? It was like stop it, which like obviously you and I speak Spanish, so you know what Charles was, or what Carlos was saying. Carlos was saying, "Deja de inventar, bro. Like stop
Yeah.
inventing." All right. And so like for me, Ferrari, it's kind of like they keep saying, no driver is bigger than Ferrari. It's like, okay, you can say that all you want, but that mentality is the reason why your
Yeah.
team has been in the
Because they not.
trenches since
They, I feel like the
2007.
last year, and I think you brought it up in the podcast, Ferrari felt like they had a touch of success last year because I almost felt like the drivers were taking more control of what they needed to do, which is like you got
Mm-hmm.
to listen to it. And like I almost felt like one reason, like at times, why Lewis was almost upset because I think you and I know how important that chemistry is, but I felt like no one was listening to
Yes.
him at times. Like
No.
he's kind of was just like, hey, we need to do this, we need to do this. I know I'm talking about. Everyone's like, no, we've done things like this all the time here, and we're going to keep doing things the same way.
I I don't know. Obviously, like a lot of things have to change. To answer, I guess the question, if I were to ask you, or like if I was to ask myself the same question, I think that definitely it's weighing enough in Charles' minds. I think that there is some merit to the rumors that say Charles is contemplating leaving
Absolutely.
Ferrari. And honestly, at this point, what has Ferrari shown Charles that would make him want to stay
Nope.
at Ferrari? Like I understand wanting to win with
Mm-hmm.
Ferrari, and actually I commend him for wanting to win with Ferrari, right? But it gets to a point where Charles is probably thinking like, okay, I again to your point, like I'm wasting my prime years in a team that doesn't seem interested in making the changes that are necessary
Like I'm gonna
for
say
us to
this:
succeed.
think what McLaren was when Charles started with Ferrari.
They were at the back, dog.
They
They
were
were
at the
at the
back,
back.
and like you had a team like that, and I know like when Charles started, I know you had a team like Red Bull was slowly chipping away, making its way back up, chipping away at Mercedes,
Mm-hmm.
and like Charles kind of seen that,
Mm-hmm.
but like he sees, I think for him like to see these teams like Red Bull had that string of success, to see McLaren go from like bottom of the pack to the top now, win Constructors Cup 2 years in a
Yeah,
row, like the Constructors Championship, and you're kind of just like
sure. And like also like to be clear, like when we say bottom, we mean bottom of like
the middle.
the
Yeah,
top
yeah,
teams
like
or
middle of the
whatever, right? Like or top of the
yeah.
midfield. But it was kind of like Zach Brown came in, helped
Mm-hmm.
turn that around, and whatever. But again, full circle. What Charles I think is probably looking for is for the team to make the necessary. That means letting go of people that have been there for
Mm-hmm.
decades, right? Because people are starting to they feel some type of way when Lewis is dropping off dossiers, folders, documents. Hey, bro, you guys got to change this. This is not good. This is not good. And they're sitting there like, what? No, okay, like stay in your lane, Lewis. And it's kind of like you brought me here. I know how to win.
Yeah.
You guys need to make personnel changes and you need to make process changes. Anyways, this is definitely not a different rabbit hole. We've been down
Oh,
this one. Like
absolutely.
I don't want it to
I
be.
think
Like
I think for us, like at the end of the day, we know things had to change in Ferrari. We know McLaren has tapped into
yes,
something successful. I think the new regulations.
yes,
I think at the end of the day, it's going to be who's going to take advantage of it. I think it's almost been like the changing of the
yes.
guard has been when the new regulations have come. Like it's almost been like it's been like
Mm-hmm.
clockwork. So it'll be interesting to see who takes advantage of it, who comes on strong. And I think a lot of people. I think for me as a spectator, I still expect like I still expect a team like McLaren to be up there, but almost it's like I don't know what to expect with the rest of the field. Like where are they going to sit with these new regulations? That's hard for me to see right now.
Yeah, and to your point, like I'm looking at the teams who have Mercedes engines, right? So like the McLarens, the Mercedes, obviously the Alpines now because they gave up on their engine manufacturing, right? And it's crazy because like a couple years back when Alpine was Renault, they were the engine providers
Mm-hmm.
for Red Bull, right? Crazy. Anyways, and so like I'm looking at Alpine, I'm looking at Williams because James Valls is doing a
Oh,
tremendous
absolutely.
job at Williams. Year two of Carlos Sainz settled into that team, which by the way sucks to be Alex Albon, I guess, right? Because like he's been at Williams now and he's been like the lead driver at Williams, but it's very clear to me now that next year it's gonna be Carlos all day, like because it did not take Carlos that long to get acclimated to Williams. And the fact that he gave Williams their first two
Mm-hmm.
podiums, and Alex Albon has not had a podium since his Red Bull days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. Obviously, we want to see some stuff out of Ferrari, and Ferrari has a couple engine manufacturer contracts, right? So they're going to be Cadillac, which is joining the team. I'm actually really excited. Hey, by the way, we got to make a pilgrimage to Fishers because guess where Cadillac
Duh. I've literally
HQ?
driven by the site where they're going to build it. It is
Yes,
close to
sir.
where I live.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am pumped. Once they get there, I'm actually trying to see if I can do a factory tour there. So I'll be pretty excited about that. So I'm excited about Cadillac. But Ferrari is providing them with their engines. Haas has a new partnership. They're gonna be the Toyota Gazoo Racing Haas F1 team. So it's not MoneyGram Haas
And then
anymore, right?
um,
Uh,
who is going to be? Because you know this one. I know it's not going to be Kick Saber anymore.
no, they're just gonna be Audi
Audi,
now.
yeah,
So
because
Audi
Saber's
is
not going to
joining.
be with F1 anymore, right?
No, Sauber is unfortunately we closed a chapter on Sauber, who had a long
I
history
remember
with
that.
F1, uh, and so like Audi is going to not have their own engines, I think, until 2028. Same thing with Cadillac. Cadillac will finally have its own engine, so they'll stop getting engines. For the next 2 years, they're going to be using Ferrari engines, but after that, it's going to be GM. GM is going to be making those engines. Obviously, next year, Red
Oh,
Bull is going to have Ford powertrain engines. Honda is moving to Aston Martin. So Aston Martin is dropping Mercedes as an engine manufacturer. And we'll see Adrian Newey plus Honda.
see how things go.
who knows, right? Fernando Alonso could finally get his 33rd victory that he's been waiting 1,400 days to get, or 4,000 days, however many days. It's been years, years. And that is the Sauber and Aston Martin mention for the
Hey,
episode.
hey.
So yeah, so like I'm excited. I'll probably be doing some more in depth year in review things, but as far as the race, coming back around, like I found myself actually anxious about the ending of the race, and what I still can't give you a straight answer on is whether I was anxious because I thought McLaren or Lando was going to somehow
Mhm.
mess it up, or if because I was anxious that Max Verstappen was potentially going to be winning his fifth. And again, like Max is great, and I highly doubt that he will not win. I'm pretty sure he'll win another World Driver Championship, right? Um, I think the problem Max will be facing though is once people around him that are his age start winning, and the mentality that'll change, right? So Lando's obviously going to be different next year now that he knows what it's like to win because he knows how to
Mhm.
win. If George gets a dub in there, now George, so now you got two that he'll be
And
racing
then
against, right?
Charles.
And then on top
Charles
of
ever
that,
gets one,
like,
yeah.
yeah, and then if he ever gets one, but will it be a
That is
Ferrari?
true.
And so like the other thing is that like the difference between all of these people and Max is that Max I think is low key following the Seb Vettel route,
Hmm.
right? He's got a family. He's got interest outside of Formula One. Obviously, you saw what he was doing in the other leagues, right? And so like Max is a different beast. I think he obviously is interested in winning. He wants to stay competitive, but it's like, is it still exciting for him? So as all of that starts happening, it'll just be interesting now because it's no longer Max fighting against, and he hasn't for a while, by the way. It's no longer Max fighting against a Lewis Hamilton or a Seb Vettel, right? It's now Max at the top with other drivers coming for him, right? And so first thing he's got to do next year is beat his teammate.
There you go.
So, but we shall see in 90 days.
Man, that's
F1 will be
so.
back.
The turnaround
Amen.
is for me is so that feels
Hallelujah.
so quick.
Yeah. But listen, the season went by
Oh
super
yeah.
quick. So we'll see it. Any parting thoughts before we close
No,
this out?
it was a fun season. I think since kind of hearing you start the podcast, I believe you started. Was it in 23?
Yeah, this is, yeah, rounding. No, this is 22. I
22.
started in
Because
22.
I know we talked about at some point before I got on there. You talked about how the FIA song was the Dutch national anthem. That was like your go-to, and now here we are, where like
Yeah.
it's spread apart so differently. So, but it was a good way to tie. I mean, the end of the season. I think the season was good, was fine. Interestingly enough, like even though like I know Maxim really got worried last year. I think I enjoyed 24 just a little bit better with, like we mentioned, with seven winners. With
Absolutely.
seven winners, that was a lot of fun having so
Absolutely.
many winners.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, let's look back. I have this pulled up right now. So in 2024, we had one, two, three, like literally like the, oh, hold on. Yeah, I'm looking at the wrong thing, you big dummy. Yeah, third race of the season. I remember 2024 started and it was like Max wins Bahrain, Saudi Arabia. I'm like, ugh, that sucks. And then Carlos wins. Then Max, Lando, Max, Charles, Max, George, Lewis, Oscar, Lewis, Lando, Charles, Oscar, Lando, Charles. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah. Max last year, Max won in Spain, and Max did not win again until Brazil. So it was glorious
Yeah.
run of a bunch of different people winning races, right? And so I was like, yeah. So more of that in 2026, and honestly, that's what I'm
Mhm.
hoping for. Like whether or not these regulations are good or bad, I look back at the season and I'm like, it was not
Mhm.
super exciting. Let's be honest, because for a lot of these races, whoever got pole
Oh
ended
yeah,
up winning the race. There was not a ton of
there was a lot of
overtakes.
parades, as we call them.
Yeah. And then like I want to see less races where they do mandatory pit stops. So I'm looking at Monaco, I'm looking at Qatar, right? Cuz that's not
Yeah.
terribly exciting. So Anyways, but yeah, it was an all right race. Congratulations once again to LN1
There we
Lando
go.
Norris, World Driver Championship. Yay! And so we'll see it. But yeah, if you have made it this far in this episode, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. It costs you nothing. As always, don't forget to tell your mommies, your papis, your tios, your tias, abuelos, abuelas, vecinos. That is neighbors if you don't speak Spanish. For the Monoplaza F1 podcast, I'm Emir Tre. That was Elkyn.
We out.
Peace.